Hey guys, what's going on? Let me check the sound. Yep, we're good. How's everybody doing tonight? Let me just gotta cut this music off here. Got too many things open at one time. Here we go. All right, so welcome to another Tuesday Night Live. We're here and trying to get work done and put a show on for you guys tonight and see what everybody's doing. Hey Rick, how you doing? Glad you could make it in tonight. Bill, hey man, how you doing? So we were supposed to be on Faith, Family, and Cars podcast tonight, but it seems like on their Facebook page they're saying they're having a hard time loading a file or something, so they never did get it put up. So I was gonna, go over that. And ICT Billet hasn't put up their interview. Hey Chris, how you doing? They haven't put up their interview yet either, so still waiting on those to get done. And, that's out of my control anyway. But yeah, so getting back from LS Fest last week. This was last week was kind of getting back into the swing of things. The Tuesday before the show, basically I just cleaned the shop from the mad rush that it was before we left, and the place was destroyed, so I got that all cleaned up. And then Wednesday I worked on Wednesday I did a big shuffle in the shop, so was able to get the trailer put away. I have the Vet Hawk is in the shop, so hopefully I'm gonna get back on that thing now. And I did some shuffling in the shop. Was able to get Mike's Trans Am up on the rack. And come to find out, the last time I test drove it, getting a little, hopefully we're not bogging down or anything. I see, just got a warning on the screen. But anyway, so yeah, I had Mike's Trans Am in the shop. Just before I left for LS Fest, I drove it one last time, trying to get it all finalized, and the speedo quit working. Yeah, Ryan, Vet Hawk. Just like one of these days, you're going to get back on your Vega too. But yeah, so I pulled the tail house off, and the speedometer gear wasn't installed correctly by the trans builder, and it ate all the teeth off the speedo drive gear, which I'm really happy it happened to me, because I'd hate to give Mike the car back and then a week or two later have the same thing happen. So we got that all straightened up. But yes, that was that, and I started doing a shift reprogram on that. So I'm going to do a video on that. Chris has got a screw loose. Did you you got your tranny out, right? Didn't you, Chris? That's what you were showing me pictures of. So yeah, I was doing a little video on that. Of course, I haven't finished it, so I haven't finished the reprogramming, so I haven't obviously finished the video. And then, boy, I thought I had the part 2 of the cup car build. I thought I had that video pretty much wrapped up, and 9 hours later, I actually was able to get that on the channel. Hopefully you guys got a chance to see it. I know it's super long. And I really didn't show a whole lot of anything getting done. I just kind of did glimpses of what we were doing, but the whole process of blueprinting an engine, it's a long entailed process. So there was really no way I could trim that up anymore. I mean, I probably could have took 5 minutes out of it, of some of the discussion on different settings and stuff, but I mean, I think it would have degraded the video. Hopefully it doesn't drive people too crazy. I kind of see on the analytics a lot of people are just fast forwarding through, which is cool. I mean, at least they're on there watching it. And at the end I give a little teaser with the car running down the street and stuff. So kind of try to wrap it all up with the engine installation and build and all that. So that took a good part of a day and a half, and but got that all taken care of, and we got I got Dave Chevelle back up on the rack, and I got the exhaust 99% built on that. I needed that because it's got exhaust cutouts, and I needed to have the wiring in place so I can finish the wiring inside the car. So now all the accessories are in the car. So did that, spent a part of it on Saturday, and then a good part yesterday, and then today back on wiring. So I got the engine completely wired now, and the Terminator X is installed, and it's wired except for two fan relay outputs. And then hopefully I can get the dash cluster in there, and I can start getting some of the programming done, and that thing will be getting closer to firing up. I had to order some more steel, some more Fragola fittings and stuff to do the trans cooler lines, a couple fuel lines I have left, and then all the power steering and hydro boost lines. But yeah, so that was moving on forward. Really didn't get much pictures or anything of it, because I actually just stopped working on it about 15 minutes ago. But making progress, that's the important thing, making progress. So that's that's what's been happening in the shop. Try to do a part 3 on the Cup car here soon. Got to go over the fuel system and the corrections I have to make on that, and I'm working on trying to find a transmission for that. I don't think it's worth putting any effort into the Sagnol iron case trans that's in it. It's better just to go ahead and get the right the right transmission for it. A regular Super T10. It's built for road racing. I do have a housing located, and that's coming. And man, I forgot to make a phone call today. Yeah, still waiting to hear where my slicks are. I ordered 10 slicks for the car. Some of the Goodyear takeoffs that are intermediate compound, which you'd use for road racing. So I was hoping that they would be getting delivered, and the guy was going to check on that. But yeah, so that's what's going on with that. I'm going to order some roll bar tubing for the Vet Hawk. I'm going to start building some of the cage and get all the floor and all that stuff all kind of put in. That'll be the next go around on that. And just try to get things moving along here. I know the days are counting down. Smurf will be coming back to get that car's got to get wired and go over everything that the guys at the chassis shop did, and see how all that works out. But making progress. So tonight I kind of really only had thoughts about working on the Terminator X system. I know we kind of do a lot of stuff on the Holley stuff. I don't know if it drives you guys crazy or not. I know I get a lot of people watching those videos that are on it, so I don't know how it translates to the live show, but go ahead and so basically what I did was I've got all the files and all the data logs from from the LS Fest weekend. So as you guys know, if you've been on the show before, basically I went around an industrial park, made a couple laps there, and that's all the tuning I had on the car when I left to go to LS Fest. So no dyno time, no wide open throttle time, a lot of just trying to get things squared away on it. And so I think it'll be pretty good. I keep seeing a warning, overload on the editing. I don't know if I can, how to stop that. Let me just go to these settings real quick, see if I can output. No, I'm not gonna be able to do anything with that right now. So hopefully it's not buffering on your end. I keep getting a warning on my end saying possible buffering. But yeah, so let's go and go to the Terminator X software, and we can go over some of this. So there's the obviously there's the Terminator X program, and so let's bring up. First thing I did is made the file, a wizard file. So yeah, basically just the main things here. But this is the file that the wizard came up with on its own. We want to go back to conversion. So that's the map table that it built up, and it's calling for about 280 pounds per hour. And it was good. It got it started and everything. But let me let's go into a comparison file, and let me bring up a couple files here. So this file was from after testing it before we left. And there we go. So not sure how well you can see that, but you can see in this quadrant it was taking a lot of fuel out, or there's a big difference between the wizard file and the file that I was actually running on September 3rd. And in the idling area, I was actually taking 80% fuel out of it. See, we go to Delta. So base, there's our base numbers, and there's our comp numbers. So yeah, you can see here I also changed the scaling on the map sensor. That was basically it. You got your target AFR. Obviously, there's a lot of differences because on the base there's no. It's a straight 13.5 here, 14.0 here, 12.5 for watt. There's no transition because of the way the wizard makes its file. Hey John, how you doing? So then you go to the comparison file, and now you can see there's actually a curvature. It's kind of hard to see in the white colors, but that's one of the big changes. So if we go to a data log, I'm not 100% sure which data log we have here yet. I didn't get a chance to go over a lot of this stuff. So there's our data log 1. Let's go to 4. So this one would have been Thursday after the first drag race. So remember, like I said, I only drove the car around an industrial park and then went to LS Fest, and then this would be the very first
quarter-mile pass. Yeah, week has gone by fast trying to get caught up. So let me get rid of some of these colors here. So basically this was staging the car here, kind of getting it ready to go, and then this is going down the track. Not bad. I shifted at 6,700. Actually, you know what that was? The reason I shifted at 6,700 because that's what the 67 and change. The rev limit was at 6,800. But you can see off the line wasn't quite wide open throttle because it was spinning the tires. And then when I grabbed second watt, third watt, a little bit of fourth, and then it went through the finish line. Now, a couple of things I wanted to show you guys. Does this have fuel pressure? So on that run, fuel pressure was pretty good. Basically 60 all the way down, 60, 62 all the way down the run. Everything was good. Now this was straight line. Yeah, 59 to 62. Obviously, you can see oil pressure was good, water temp was good. So everything was good on that run. This run I kind of baby shifted it because I wasn't sure if the car was going to go straight or turn, or if it had vibrations. I didn't know how good the brakes were going to be at speed, so I kind of just rolled through the gears, let the learning do its job in case it needed some learning. Let's go to let me get rid of TPS and ignition timing, and bring up current learn. So current learn was it did 0 learn on that run, and then closed loop comp. It was doing some work on closed loop comp. So it was kind of adding about 50% fuel because I hadn't run up in that spot, but luckily that's what that stuff does, and you can see that it didn't miss it very much. Target was 13.2 and it was running 13.9, so wasn't like it was going to burn anything up or anything. It was trying to get after it. So with that, we can go back to the tune, and now let's get rid of comparison and bring up see what file I had. I didn't have a lot of time on Tuesday. Let's see, let's say 1. So no. So so what I did was so the first run I went down the track, baby shifted. Sorry, kind of took myself off what was going on here.
So drove it down the car track, baby granny shifting it, got up to 103, 104 mile an hour. Brakes were good, steering was good. I'm like, okay, good. Now we're going to get after it this next run. Well, the next run, the tranny jammed in second, and I wasn't able to make a pass. So I went ahead and extracted the learning file and the data logs, and then went back at the hotel and made some changes. So here's the
learning table from those one run and one aborted run, and this kind of got me. I was kind of confused about this because it should be at between 102 and 105 kPa at wide open throttle. So I was thinking, was the throttle body too close, too small for the engine? But then I realized that I'm picking up my map signal at the base of the throttle body. So it's got a passageway it's just above the gasket, below the blades, and that's where it's grabbing manifold vacuum. But to make the Cal air cleaner that NASCAR runs fit on that engine, I had to put 2.5 inches of spacer underneath between the manifold and the throttle body. And so what I think is happening here is the velocity of the air going past that point is actually creating vacuum. You know, like when you blow across a bottle, you can make it whistle because you're using that volume of the bottle to create a sound or an echo or whatever. But anyway, so I think that's what was happening here, because you can see that it was adding 50% fuel here, and the cursors is right on this section, so that was at wide open throttle. So not a big deal. We can tune around it, but in the future what I will do is I will drill a manifold, a map sensor port closer to the plenum of the throttle body, closer to the plenum of the intake, so we get a better reading there. But nevertheless, so it did all that, and we went ahead and made the next file that we started out the day with. And let's see, I have learning on this one. No, so this was the file that I put in that morning, which would have been Friday morning, to go run the autocross. And of course we did some data logging. So let's look at a couple data logs there. So those would have been 5th, 6th. So this would have been a data log from Friday. Okay, I was going to say that didn't look right. So there's a reason why this looks funny. You got to remember, this is an autocross pass, so we're running. We start out on a slalom course, and then we go through a pretty big sweeping corner, and we have a straightaway. It's got a small chicane in it. Then there's a heavy turn, and then accelerate through the box to finish the run. Actually, so I got ahead of myself. So this is the slalom course here. Then, you know, acceleration through the one corner, then straightaway with a chicane in it, and then this goes into the final 180-degree turn, and then this is going through the stop box. So that's where you can see the green lines are throttle. So wherever it's opening, you know, wide open throttle, and then controlling, or I'm sorry, that's closed loop count. Let's put TPS. That'll make more sense. Okay, so there's throttle, you know, using throttle control to drive the car through the cone course, and that's what that was. So now I wanted to go over, because I found out some things. Let's go ahead and, well, we can leave the TPS up. Let's put fuel pressure up. And let me get rid of TPS, or can I change the color? So let's make that white. So there's our fuel pressure. Now you remember, we're going down the drag strip. It was pretty darn good. Only had like 2 pounds of variation for a returnless fuel system. I thought that was quite well. But now you can see that wherever the throttle is open and the engine RPMs are going up, the fuel pressure is dropping down. Now what we don't see here is steering input, so we can't see that the car's getting thrown around left and right. But like, let's look at this one right here. Fuel pressure was all the way down to 40. And TPS was at 100%, and the engine was at 5,000 RPMs. So this shows the lack of preparation I put into the fuel tank. And this is why Chris and I have been working so diligently on his fuel cell, because he road races his car. It's going to even be worse than this. So this just case in point shows that my system that I didn't work. And all I did was I just stuck a in-tank fuel pump with internal regulator in the tank, surrounded it by foam, and just figured I'll just keep the tank full of fuel and see if we can make it through the weekend, because I just didn't have time to dig into that, being I put the car together a couple hours before we left. So what I did after this run, because it had a lot of flat spots, is I said, let me put some more fuel in the tank. So let's open up another data log. So this one should have more fuel added. Okay, pull up the run. And it wasn't as bad. So here's that one spot that it dropped down to 40, and it was still down to 39. So it didn't solve itself. It was working around it. So it definitely shows that my fuel cell needs to be recreated, plain and simple. So yeah, so that was that. Let's go to pull up our next day. So that would have been day 2. So this is going to be the so there's what the learn tables were showing after 4 autocross trips, even with adding the fuel to the tank. And actually, I may not have got the second data log may not have been with the added fuel in there, but you can see that it's adding tons of fuel all throughout here where we're running around the track. Now again, the Holley system, the way they're designed, they're always trying to correct the situation. If we go back to that data log, let me get rid of TPS, get rid of fuel and coolant. We don't need that. Let's go to target AFR and AFR. That looks pretty bad. Plain and simple. Let's go to current learn. Let's see if we can change that to a little brighter color. So on the current learn, you can see it was doing a lot of work. Wasn't going max because I had the current learn set at 50. So it was only going up to about 25%, and it was keeping the AFRs relatively close, even though the AFR sample rate shows differently. But it was theoretically it was working. We had no issues with melting a piston or anything like that. So the next day, I'll go open up the next day's file. So it would have been 2, 3. This would have been the last correction on day 2. And you can see after all the changes, except for right at the watt, we pretty much got it pretty well under control now. So here's a case in point where we have an inconsistency with the build of the car.
But through the Holley system, we were able to utilize the learning to put a band-aid on it, so to speak. It's not optimum at all, but at least you can run the car and you don't have to have too much worries about it doing anything crazy. It never got detonation. The big things it did have was it had some flat spots where fuel pressure was lost, and it had a flat spot. That the computer cannot remedy. So, that's what it was doing. So let's look at a data log from the last day.
I say last day. It wasn't actually the last day. It was the last day of I made adjustments. So this would be in the power stop. I haven't even looked at this data log yet. So let's see what we got here. Alright, so that wasn't a good capture. Let me try it. I have one other one that's from the last day. I didn't have my screen mounted in the car, so it kind of made it really hard to remember the data log. Now, one of the things you see, a lot of that, there's a long data log, is because we have there's a lot of idle time when you're doing the power stop, because you get in line and you have to go there. So let's go look at our fuel pressure. So we still, even in this day, we were still having dips, and that was a little bit more fuel added. So definitely have to get the fuel cell completely straightened out. That is a must.
So just kind of, showing you guys more information about why it's important to do data logs, because you can, you say, hey, the car's hesitating. Well, if it's not hesitating when I'm looking at it, I'm not going to know why it did it. But if you can recreate, you can, you know what you have to do to make it do the hesitation. Say, throw it into a corner or whatever it is, whatever problems you're having, engine stalling or whatever like that. As long as you can replicate it, hit the data log button and log it, and then between having the main tune and having the data log, we can go through and we can make the corrections needed. That's how I do all my remote tuning. So just kind of something I wanted to go over with you guys. Obviously, I need to work on the fuel cell. That was my bad, and even after, I kind of kicked myself in the rear, because when Chris and I were talking about his, I'm like, oh no, we got to do a fuel collection can. We need to have check balls so it can, when you turn, it refills. The fuel sloshes, it refills the collection tank, and all these things. And then I put my car together and I go, oh well, whatever. And it bit me hard in the butt, but we still had a good time up there, and the car showed a lot of promise. I can only tell, use this information to know that when I do get the thing done, it's going to really fly. But a couple other good things that came from it. I now know that on Chris's fuel tank, we have to mount the collection can in the bottom of the tank, because that was one thing I found with mine. Every time I made a lap on the autocross track, I'd have to go and open the gas cap and stick my arm down in the cell and reconfigure all the foam, because you don't think about it. You put the foam in the cell and you're like, oh yeah, this is foam. It's light as anything. Well, it's not light when it's saturated with fuel. Now you've got a 5 or 6 pound block bouncing around in the fuel cell. So I came up with a solution on Chris's, and now I have to do the same thing on the Cup car. Make a collection can for the Cup car, and then from the collection can up to the mounting bolts to the lid of the fuel cell, we're going to make stanchions so that it is tied into, from the top of the tank, it's tied in. It can't move around. And I think even after that, I'm still going to put a table leg or a stop that pushes down on the base of the cell of the collection can to push down on the cell. I know in the Cup car, my RJS tank, the whole top is kind of caved in because it's plastic, and they just don't get a very good. It's not molded very good where the top is kind of caved in. So putting a table leg in there and separating the top from the bottom and using that to hold the collection can, that will also make the fuel cell keep its shape better. So those are the things that we're going to work on in the future. Right now the Cup car is resting in the trailer, and it's going to rest in there for a little while till I get some more components to get back on that. Get the road race rear end housing for it, so it's got negative camber on both sides. I need to get some sheet metal and fabricate a battery box. I'm going to put the battery on the passenger side of the car, transfer some weight to the right side of the car, and I have to figure out the transmission and get a good working transmission for it. So while I'm accumulating that stuff, that car can rest a little bit, and then we'll get back to it. And this gives me a shot to get back on the Vet Hawk and get that project moving along, because I definitely would like to not do an 8-week or 6-week marathon trying to get a car ready for LS Fest next year. And so I figured, if I get started on it now and thrash on it all year, I've got a year to get it together. I'm not going to have the car finished for LS Fest, but I just want to make it running and driving so that I can take it up there and find out what its weaknesses are. Unfortunately, we don't have many places local to do autocross, so and there's not a lot of, most of the cars in the local autocross stuff are Miatas and stuff like that, so it's hard to judge where you are in like kind conditions. So at LS Fest, everybody's got an LS engine. Most of the cars are in the 3,000 to 3,500 pound range. A good portion of them are running the same tires and have a lot of pro touring autocross type suspension. So it's a little bit more apples to apples when you compare against what the other cars are doing. Kind of give you more of a heads up of where you're at. And even with all these problems we had with the Cup car, it didn't do bad. I think in the autocross times, I think I was in the 25 to 35 position, 25 to 35 in that range out of 70 cars. So not shabby when you consider all the things that I was fighting with the whole time. So it would have been nice to have it better, but I only had the amount of time I had to work on it, so I could only make it as good as time allowed. It wasn't that it was a final product by any means. So that's what we're going to be working on in the future. Got to get a couple of these projects done and out of here so we can move on to other stuff. But I definitely want to try to get a little time every week, if not just one day every week on the Vet Hawk and get it moving along. So that's pretty much what I had for tonight. I know it's not much. I didn't have a whole lot of time to organize. I was working on that the governor deal, but I didn't quite get that done. Chris says, okay, transmission out and a loose screw causing the leak. Okay. All right, right. You showed me the picture. It was the front fork slider. I got 6 bolts out of the flywheel. So how do I remove the flywheel? Stuck tight. So yeah, you got to just kind of take you can do a couple things. You can take a screwdriver and pry between the engine block and the flywheel right at the midpoint, like where your starter, there's a plane there where your starter bolts on, and there's a plane on the other side. So you can get a screwdriver in there and kind of just keep working it back and forth, and it'll work its way off. So yeah, that's going to get you, so you better get after that oil pan deal. So yeah, the clutch came off okay, right? Just the 6 bolts, and that came right out. And then you guys got the flywheel, and they usually do sit on the crank flange very tight. You don't want that thing moving around, that's for sure. So as you guys can see, Chris is still working on getting his project up and running. He didn't like the oil pressure situation, and we were talking about the oil pressure in the Cup car, and how it pretty much maintained 60 plus all the time. So he decided he's going to go after the pressure relief spring and try to get some more pressure, at least raise the pressure spring so it creates more pressure in the system. It still may fluctuate hot to cold, but at least it'll be probably 20-25 pounds higher than where he's currently at. I think he's at like 40, 42 cold, and it gets down in the 20s idling hot. I mean, obviously gets back up into the 40s when he's on the motor, on the throttle, but that needs to be a little higher in my termination. Yes, clutch out, fine, cool. And Chris, if you don't have a clutch alignment tool, I got one you can borrow when you're ready to go back together. But obviously, you got a little bit of time before that happens. But yeah, I if you guys watch the engine assembly video, I do put in there while I'm working on the oil pump that I'm old school and I like the 10 pounds for every 1,000 RPM. So, and my thought process is if the motor turns 7,000, it needs to have 70 pounds of oil pressure. And even the Cup car is not exactly where I would like to have the pressure, but I tried in the Mellings kit. They come with the high pressure spring, they come with a low pressure spring, and they come with a Copo spring, which is supposed to be plus 20. So I decided, I never used that one before, so I said, well, let me try it out on this thing. And so I did, and it's a little lower than what I'd like. Normally I use the high pressure spring, and then because of the engine bearing clearances I run, I add another 60 thou shim to it, and that usually gets it up into the 90s cold. I know the my 50 Chevy, that would get 100 pounds cold, and it would run about 75, 80 hot. So I kind of like the pressure up that way. There's pros and cons. I've had engine builders and machinists tell me I'm putting a lot of strain on the oil pump components. I've never had one break, so I don't know how much truth that is. I mean, does it have extra drag on the engine? Absolutely. But you know what? Just make more horsepower. That's my idea. You know, I'd rather have a really good lubrication, because as I've talked in the past, and I talk in the engine build video, that you know you're riding on a film of oil, not the bearing, as the name of the insert implies. It's not a bearing; it's an insert to give you a cushion between your crank surface and your connecting rod surface, or your crank surface and your engine block surface. And it does become a bearing if there's a touchdown from lack of oil in the cavity. And obviously, if you do that enough times, there'll be metal transfer, and then you'll spin a bearing. The bearing insert will try to weld itself to the crank journal, and then it spins, ruining the bore that it sits in. So if it's a connecting rod, it ruins the bore of the connecting rod. And depending on what kind of connecting rod it is, it could make it a throwaway piece. And if it's a main bearing and you spin the main bearing in the block, most of the time you can throw the block away. There are some certain engines that you can buy an oversized journal bearing, but very few, far in between. And it only takes a couple thou, and then you can't line hone or line bore the block to make it good again. So then you have to throw it away. So when you get an expensive block, like the one that's going into Vet Hawk, which is a LSA block that's been punched out and dart and sleeves put in. I've got $3,500 invested in that engine block, so that's not one I want to throw away. So again, I will run my clearances like I always have for the past 35-40 years, and knock on wood, it works well. And only times we've ever seen a problem is when there was some kind of issue. Get a hairline crack in the crank and it's moving, run an engine out of oil, then you get touchdown. Things like that. So obviously on a power adder motor, you got to watch detonation because you can flatten the bearings, and then that makes the oil clearance bigger. Then you start losing oil pressure, and then stuff like that. It's kind of a progression. So you want to try to always not have that kind of progression when you're working on your motors. A couple of things I didn't put in that video, and I should have, but it was just already so freaking long, is if you ever take an engine block apart and on your block surface where your main cap's tightened down against, you see a lot of I'll say buffering, but it's like it's not nice shiny machine surface. It's got like chatter marks on it, and that's exactly what it is. That's signs of detonation. So anytime you take an engine apart and you find that, it's been detonated, and you're going to have to do a line hone on the block to get the caps back in position, because now from the detonation they've moved and they probably opened up the crush on the main journal bearings. The other thing you can do is you take your upper bearing on the connecting rod, or your lower bearing half on the main caps, and you measure the width. So you measure the width at the seam where the two bearing inserts meet, and then you go to the center and you measure it there. And if it's been detonating, you'll see that the bearing is flattened out and the bearing has gotten wider at that point. Once again, a sign of detonation. One, you have to go over the machine work very closely, as in checking all the connecting rod journals and the main caps, having more than likely just having all that stuff resized. And then that when you do put it back together, you have to look at the tuning, because there's an issue with the tuning that caused that in the first place. So whenever you pull a motor apart or put it together, it's always an investigation. You want to go through and investigate all the different nuances of the engine to make sure that you catch everything, so that when you put it together, you don't have any issues. So those are just things that go along with all the stuff that I showed in the video already. How to figure out your clearances and figure out TDC, degree the camshaft in. Fortunately on that engine, although the bore was bad on that engine, but typically timing chain, you have to make some timing chain adjustments when you're doing degreeing the cam. On that engine, that setup, it went right together and it was spot on. So that was good, but I kind of wanted it would have been better maybe if it didn't work out exactly right, so it would have showed a little bit more correction and stuff. But we definitely saw when we checked the engine bore that the block had previously been bored oversized, and either they did not do it with torque plates, or they just missed on the setup or something, because it had a lot of outer round cylinders in the block. Luckily, they were still too tight for the pistons I was using, so we had to open it up anyway. So we were able to straighten the cylinder bores with a final hone with torque plates, and that got our clearance for our piston to wall. So with the in the video you would have seen piston wall on the pistons were like 3 1/4 thou, and the piston manufacturer was calling for 5 thousandths. So they were too tight. So fixing that, first of all, checking it, your block was 30 over. You could, it wouldn't be the right way, but I mean, you could say, oh, it's 30 over, and just put it together. And it would probably ran for 500 miles or so, but you would have had huge piston skirt scuffing, and that would just led to a whole problem, because now the pistons are going to start rocking because it's going to squeeze the skirts, and then you're going to have rings that aren't sealing properly, and then you're going to get a lot of fuel contamination in the oil, along with all the metal contamination from the pistons rocking and the rings wearing, and then that all goes right back through the oil pump and right back through the bearings, and just keeps trashing everything over and over again. If you've ever taken a engine apart that maybe was just freshened up or only lightly raced or something of that nature, and you pull it apart and the oil pan is nasty with black gunk in the bottom, that's because there's issues in that block or in the build that things weren't measured properly and clearances weren't set properly. So you can telltale that. I probably should do that at one time. I never did a video on teardown, because that's a good place to do your research to see what happened and what could be corrected so it doesn't happen again. But one of the things that I do, and it's a little time consuming, but when I take the engine apart, I set the engine on the engine stand in the orientation it's in the car. So in other words, oil pan on the bottom, intake, cylinder heads on the top. And I do not turn the motor over until it is completely disassembled. And the reason is that gunk in the oil pan. I don't want that to when the motor's flipped over, all run down inside the engine. When you pull the pan off, it looks clean. Well, now you don't have that telltale that there could be some lurking issues that you need to further investigate. You pull the pan off and it's clean. You're like, oh yeah, this thing's good to go. So that's the reason why I do that. Plus, if you drop anything down in the motor while you're disassembling it, a bolt or washer or nut or something, it'll get collected in the oil pan. When you drop the pan, you'll better find what you were looking for, and it won't be a mystery where it ended up. Now, once I get the pan off, I will rotate the engine 45 degrees to knock the pistons out of it. Both directions. I go 45 degrees in one direction to drive that set of pistons out. I'll make that deck flat, and then I'll drive the pistons up, and that way the rings pop up, and then the piston sits on top of the cylinder wall there, and you don't have to worry about the piston falling on the ground and damaging the pistons further. Problems with the connecting rods hitting the ground, stuff like that. So those are just little tricks that I do to help keep everything the way it's supposed to be, so that you can do that detective investigation to find out what has to be done to put the engine back together again and not have the issues it had when it's coming apart. If the motor's been in a race car for a number of years and has lots of racing on it, that's all good, and that's the way you want it to be. You don't want to be tearing a motor out of a car after a couple passes or a year of running. That's no good. But then again, there again, you still want to do that investigation when you take it apart, because you want to make sure you catch everything. It's one thing to do the blueprinting when you're going back together, but if you catch stuff on the disassemble, you can have it fixed before you do the assembly, and you won't have those issues. With like the Cup car engine, that was a block and heads I bought used, so I had no no information except for what I was told on those components. So it was a little harder to do the investigation. I had to kind of do it on the fly, but we found everything and it's running good. As you know, knock on wood, most of my motors do. I mean, the 50 Chevy, that motor ran very spirited. I won't say ran hard. It was ran the way it was intended to be run. But definitely had a lot of laps on the autocross track on it. Lots and lots of gallons of E85 went through it. And the thing ran better when I sold the car with the motor being 5 years old than it did when I first put it in the car. So that's the way you want things to go. You want it you want the thing to engine to survive its journey, and next time you take it apart, you can hop it up more or whatever you want to do with it. But that's the things we were looking for. So yeah, so that was it. If you guys didn't get a chance to take a peek at it, at that video, I may go back and put chapters in it. Maybe the chapters might help a little bit. At least that way you can go back to the spots you want. But that'll be good. I'll work on that. And this weekend, hopefully I can find a couple hours and I'll put the LS Fest video together from this season. Of course, it's from my perspective, because I'm involved in events, so I can't go around and get a lot of footage of other things, but I tried to get some, and I did have my youngest daughter go around and take pictures, although she didn't do many videos, but she got a lot of snapshot pictures. So I'll put that stuff together and try to make some heads or tails reasoning of what's going on in the video, make it make sense, and show you guys what's going on up there. And anybody that wants to go up to either the Triple Crown in Nashville or LS Fest LS Fest in Bowling Green, they're the same weekend, and we're definitely trying to rally the troops to get a caravan going up next year. So I know my buddy Jonathan wants to take his Chevelle to Triple Crown. I'm sure Scott will probably try to do double duties again this year like he did last year. He went to Triple Crown on Friday and he did LS Fest on Saturday, Sunday. So we'll see what he decides to do at that point. And anybody else that we can try. I'm twisting Chris's arm pretty good to see if I can get him to come up. And it'd be nice. I think by next year Joe would be probably ready to take some more time off. I know he's really busy with his fork truck company, but I know he definitely was talking about trying to slow down a bit. So maybe we can get Joe to go up, and probably Rob Manweiler. He'd probably go to Triple Crown because he doesn't have an LS in his car, but get him to go to Triple Crown. But it'd be nice if we could have a whole group of people go up together. That way the guys that drive their cars up have a little bit of security that we're there with caravanning with tow vehicles and tools and everything to help them out. And yeah, so that's the beauty of going to these big events. If you can get a bunch of people to go together, Scott and I caravan in a single vehicle when we go currently. I'm hoping to have my tow vehicle a little better off next year, and and Scott's tow vehicle will be, hopefully the 8.1 will be in there next year with the Allison, and then maybe somebody could tow their car up on the back of his truck like I've towed mine in the past 2 years and help Scott out with the driving. So, but we got a year to think about these things. But I don't want to wait till the last minute like we did this year. That was not good. I really shouldn't have done it, but I made a promise to Scott that I was going to go. He had already made all these plans, and so then I had to make it happen. So I will make the promise again next year, but I'm going to try to be way more productive and have everything ready to go ahead of time. So that was all that stuff on the engine stuff. Like I said, hopefully you guys got a chance to take a peek at it anyway. Like I said, I know it's an hour and 5 minutes long or something like that, so not much I could do about that. I wanted to make sure that I showed all of the important parts of engine blueprinting and assembly. So it is what it is. But it's had a good success so far. It's views per hour are good. In fact, right now it's trending to the upper section of the of all my on the analytics of all my other videos. So that's good. So people are tuning in and watching it, even if it's fast forward or whatever. It seems like right now my average watch time is about 10 minutes, and the video is an hour and a half, hour and 5 minutes long. So people are fast forwarding. That's okay. Watch it at your leisure. You may see something, or maybe down the road you're building an engine and then you'll remember, hey, that video is on there. I can take a peek at that. So, but yeah, I'm going to try to have a wrap-up video on Mike's Trans Am for next week, because that car should be done now. Hopefully, I'm going to try to do the test drives tomorrow, get the governor recalibration done tomorrow. I can finish that video up. We can go over that next week for you guys. Not sure. Many people have really messed with the governors on the 250, 350, 400, and 700 R4 transmissions, where they actually have a mechanical governor in them. Even some of my friends that are do transmission work have really never even messed with the governor kits. I've always done them because you can tune your shift points in really nicely. I've usually can get them where you can leave the transmission in drive and it will shift pretty close to red line every shift. So that's always what my end result is in the calibration. And it just makes the car easier to drive. It puts the things, we all are doing this. We're hodgepodging these cars with all kinds of, or as Scott calls it, Frankensteining. We're taking components from different vehicles and throw them in the shell of our project car, and the transmissions are calibrated for the vehicle that they came out of. So if you take a transmission, it was a 700 R4 and it was behind a V6, you may or may not have known that. And it was in a car with a 26-inch, 27-inch tall tire and a 308 gear, versus in a truck with a 30-inch tall tire and a 373 gear. The governors are going to be different. So that's why I've gotten into governor recalibration, because I've ran into that early on in my first business, Street Rods and Classics, because that was our opening business back in 1989. I don't know if I should say that, but anyway, back in 1989, I had a shop in Boca Raton, Florida, and it was called Street Rods and Classics. And what our main goal was, what we did a lot of, is we took late 50s, early 60s cars, a lot of them that had 6 cylinders in them and manual transmissions, or almost all of them had drum brakes, all these things. We would put a modern drivetrain in them. We'd put a 350 or a 383. We'd put a 700 R4. We'd put a power brake assist and master cylinder. Plumb the line so you had 2 reservoirs, so you had front brakes and rear brakes. A lot of those old cars had a single master cylinder. You lost one brake line, one wheel cylinder, you had no brakes, and you're going to crash the car, especially in driving in today's traffic. All the cars you're driving around have ABS brakes and airbags and all these other things, and they can stop on a dime. So, we need to make our cars equally as good or better. But that's what we did back then, is we did a lot of that. And so we got in very early in the calibrating the governors, because we were trying to make them drive better. you'd get them in there and the car wouldn't want to shift until real late, or it would stack the shifts really early. So putting a governor kit in there, we were able to recalibrate that and fix it and make the car drive more normal. Then, of course, with the disc brakes and all that stuff, even though that was in the early 90s, you could drive your car in traffic on an interstate and run 70, 75, 80 and felt safe. So, of course, nowadays we're doing a lot more stuff. Hydro boost, we're doing way big brakes, fuel injection, all those things now. So we're even refining that old car to be better than new cars even further. So, but yeah, I'll get that video done this week. And then once that's done, I'll also be able to get a wrap-up video on the car, showing all the work I did to it. And we can go over that next week. And hopefully I'll have most of the wiring finished up on the Chevelle. So maybe I can get this thing really close to running. I did have to order transmission lines and some other small fittings and some tubing for the exhaust to finish that. But theoretically, I could have it pretty close to firing up by next week. If not next week, the following week, we definitely will have that thing fired up. So that would be a huge goal to reach for the shop, and then a good thing to get that one out so we can get some of these other projects in, get them moving along. And we got Dick's T-Type in the shop that I haven't started on yet, but got Gen 5 Camaro brakes to go on that, rear end gear and Positrack, Holley HP and Pro Dash, and some wiring and some finish up on some of the plumbing. The car has a Stroker V6 turbo motor in it with an aftermarket turbo and air-to-air intercooler, and it's hasn't been completed putting together. So we're going to go ahead and get that thing taken care of for him, and so that's going to be something coming down in future episodes. And of course, as we go through that stuff, that'll lead to some more tech talks for our Tuesday night show. It is after 8 o'clock, so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up tonight here. Thank you, everybody that was on that came on the show. A little bit lower viewership this week than we had last week, but that could be because of the picture of the NASCAR versus Holley Terminator. Who knows? Looks like we had a pretty good average viewing for the hour. I've said this in the past for you guys. If you guys want to, obviously, Bill and Chris are local, but anybody that wants to take some pictures of their car and we can talk about maybe a situation or a problem you're having where you need some technical assistance or just want to brag about the work you did on your car. Feel free to drop me some pictures and a little email, and or give me a call. My phone number and emails are all on the main page of the YouTube channel, and we can make that happen. I really want this to be a back and forth between you guys and myself. I don't seem to have a problem talking and BSing for an hour, but I'd really like to have you guys do input if you have anything to add to the show. I would love that. But anyway, I think with that, we're going to go ahead and call it for tonight. I just want to give Rick a shout out. I saw he's getting his interior done, and he had the dash painted and stuff. Looking great, man. And obviously we talked. Chris is getting his transmission leaks and he's going to get his oil pressure done. Bill switched his car from Bosch sensors to NTK, so it's going to be interesting to see what the air fuel ratios look like now. So these are all things that we can look forward to. So I guess we'll go ahead and call it the show for tonight. I really appreciate everybody coming on and spending your Tuesday night with me, and hit the like button if you like the information you saw. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you aren't subscribed or don't have an account with YouTube, set up an account with YouTube. You don't have to post videos to have an account. The account gives you the ability to interact with the chat and interact with, so you'll be able to subscribe to video channels that you like to go back to and watch their videos. So all those things are free to do. It just takes a couple seconds to set it up. So I say please do that. Like I said, give us a like if you like it. And with that, I will see you guys next week. See ya.